When you talk about bumping a player, it's pretty much
great courage. One that says the bump is dead, that's how you deliver it.
What is going on, YouTube universe? My name is Trent. Some of you guys might know me as Zirra from other corners of YouTube, and welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where today we are going to be diving back into Afl Supercoach, namely looking at how I personally performed in round 3 and talking about the trades that not only I'm going to be making heading into round 4, but talking about some players that you guys might want to consider as well. I personally thought I had a subpar round for round 3. I scored 1,791. And that's a little bit upsetting given I had some players underperform, especially players that should be giving a hell of a lot better input for their price point. That being said, comparatively from round 2 to round 3, I moved up 36,000 spots as a round ranking, and with the season rank, I moved up just over 8,300 spots. So we're finally in the top 100,000, closing in on the top 90,000, and I'm actually quite happy with that result. It's going to be a slow burn. It's going to be a slow grind. I rolled the dice early with players that maybe I shouldn't have, and I'm now kind of in a position where I'm chasing tail a little bit. But this is where we can start making moves, because heading into round 4, we've got a decent sized kitty to play with. I've got 194,000 in the bank, purely from trades that I made kind of on the run, kind of as a whim. Trades that facilitated moves like getting rid of Gibcus to a Ambrosio via burning Wines for Lions, and then obviously this week we had to burn Lions a little bit because he was in and out of Brisbane, and I don't like the fact that he's getting fucked around. I think he should be playing in the Brisbane lineup, best 22. But when we look at players that have been underperforming, Jaden Short in my defensive line is one of those players. I honestly thought he was going to be a top 8, top 10 defender this year, but under Adam Uze, he's playing a different role. He's more wing-centric, not getting kick-ins. Those rebound 50s are not really adding up either. He's still getting a lot of meters gained, but his disposal efficiency as well has been well down from what we have seen. So he is going to be one of my trades this week. And I will be making 3 of them. I will be using my 3rd boost already, and it's out of necessity. And I think people will understand the moves I'm making once I make them. But as I said, Short is definitely gone. I was tossing up between 2 players, but I have definitively worked out who I'm going to bring in for him. Looking at the midfield group, I'm very happy that we're going to get DPP shifts come round 7, or after round 7, because Roberts and McKercher should both get defensive DPP, and that means I can trade out a D'Ambrosio or a Williams, drop them down to a basement rookie, shift one of these guys to defense, and we get an instant upgrade to a premium straight away. Sam Berry has been named to return to Adelaide this week. Unfortunately, he is going to be a player that I am trading out this week, again, out of necessity for moves I want to make. Kieran Briggs comes back in this week off the bye. I'm hoping he can have a big game against the Gold Coast. I don't think Jared Witts is going to play. They're bringing in a rookie ruck, so I'm hoping he goes big. I rolled the dice with Briggs over Gawn, and I'm kind of upset that I didn't go with Gawn early. I could still very well down the track move Grundy to Gawn and then have a Gawn-Briggs combination, which is still going to give me a point of difference. But Grundy's going okay. He's doing quite well. I mean, he's dropping in price, which is a little bit concerning, but he's still giving us the scores that we were hoping we were going to get out of him. And up forward, this is where my necessity comes in, because I'm still having to play 3 of my 5 rookies, and Tom Berry is going to be one of which I'm going to be getting rid of this week. I'm willing to give Sexton a reprieve. Hopefully he moves back to halfback this week and can give me a decent score, but it's going to be the Berry boys and Jaden Short that we are trading out. But before I do my trades, let's talk about some trades that you guys might want to facilitate at home. And more importantly, some players that got up and have played either 1 game or on the bubble of 2 games that I think you guys should consider. Last week against Hawthorn, Toby Conway debuted and had a solid outing for his first hit out. I'm very much looking at him as a potential shift next week when he is on the, well, actually, no, not next week. Yes, next week. Next week when he's on the bubble. I know Livingston, it serves as a good captain loophole currently, but if we can make money out of Conway and then go back to Livingston, I know it sounds like a stupid fucking trade to get rid of a player and then bring them back in later, but if Livingston is still going to stay at 102k and we can make 200k out of Conway, I'm happy to make that move. Another player that I'm keeping a close eye on is Sam Naismith, because with Lynch out for 10 to 12 weeks and with Bolter out for 3 to 5, Naismith could get a call up and make us a little bit of coin early, especially if he can get scores that are 90 plus. So another one to keep an eye on. On the bubble, Sam Draper, if you really want to look at him, I don't think he would be a viable option. And there's no other really basement level price ruckman to look at. The only one really to consider if you're looking at all is Conway and maybe Naismith. Those are the only two. Ned Moyle played very well for the Gold Coast 2 weeks ago, had the bye last week, and then they're bringing in another ruckman, and I'm a little bit concerned about whether that's going to push Moyle out, but he looked good on debut as well, so he's one that maybe you should consider. The price point might be a little bit iffy though, but obviously I'm sticking with Conway. That's not Livingston, sorry. I will be trading him for Conway when the move comes. When I am talking about moving Jaden Short out, there were two players that I was highly considering. The first of which was Lockie Whitfield, and he was in my calculations 2 weeks ago. I didn't make the trade for round 3 because Whitfield had the bye. I think he's in career best form, and I really like him as a pick. A little bit concerned though about his body and whether he can hold up with injury. He's still only got an ownership of 9.6%, so still very much a pod pick. Nick Vlosten is one I've also got my eye on. Still only in 1.5% of teams. Has been playing very much the Jaden Short role that I thought Jaden Short was going to play. So I might consider Nick Vlosten after the Richmond bye. We have St Kilda this week, then West Coast next week, and then we get the bye, finally. The player I am pulling the trigger on, and one I probably should have started from the beginning, is Harry Sheezel. He's going to be a top 4 defender this year. Could very well finish as the number 1 defender if he can stay consistent. I'm spewing I didn't start him. I started Hayden Young. Hayden Young fired back this week, though, with a very solid 130, but I moved Hayden Young to Luke Ryan, and I think Luke Ryan has been more consistent in his scores, so I'm happy to bring, that trade into the mix. But Short to Sheezel, definitely the move I'm going to make early, and that obviously locks up 108k for myself. When looking at rookie options for the back line, I still have Zach Reed, and I was very much considering moving Reed out this week for a player for cash generation, but I believe he is only a week or 2 out from coming back, and I think he's got some money to make when he does come back, because I do rate him as a player. Until then, he also gives me a captain's loophole option, which I don't usually go into a season wanting to have, but I'm happy to have one. When we look at some potential players that have only played 1 game that could be worth looking at for a defensive downgrade, or players that are on the bubble that you want to bring in for that cash generation, obviously Angus Hasty debuted last week, didn't really get much of an opportunity and a good run at it, only the 18 points. Not sold on him 100%. Same with Caleb Mitchell. They're low enough in price to bring in, but I don't think they're going to give us scores that we are going to be continuously wanting to bring in. Looking further down the list, we've still got Charlie Dean, who is on the bubble. I'm not sure whether he gets back into the Collingwood lineup or not, but he is one to consider if we potentially want to bring him in. Joshua Draper, I think, is one of 2 players that you'd need to consider this week on the bubble. He's playing the role of Brennan Cox, and I think Cox is still out for another 10 to 12, so he could still very well keep that spot. I don't know whether or not we're going to consistently see plus 60 scores, but he's going to generate cash, and if you're bringing him in, I think he's going to be a bench option only for that coverage anyway, but one to definitely consider. Another player that I was considering was Tom Brown from Richmond. Back-to-back 60-odd scores. due to make some big cash this week. It would almost, based upon what I've seen for cash generation, take him to about 200k. However, I'm worried about his job security, because if Dylan Grimes comes back in this week, I fear it's at the behest of Tom Brown, and that could hurt anybody who potentially looks to bring him in. So very much keep an eye on that. Jace Burgoyne is another one, had a bit of a low score this week, but only scored 50 odd the week prior. So again, at the price point of 180k, do you want to be bringing in a player that is only averaging 40 odd points a game? I think we avoid that. And that is pretty much it for bubble options. This week we do have 3 debuts for the Gold Coast in, and I will bring them up momentarily. We have Will Graham debuting, 117k defender mid. Could be very handy to have, especially if players like Roberts and McKercher get that defensive swap. And Closey, 102k defender, getting his first game. If they persist with him, could very well be a decent downgrade option, and at bottom price, we could be dropping a Zach Williams down to that, banking, 150k and being very happy, very happy. But I'm not moving Reed on. I'm keeping Reed. When we look at our midfield core, before I make the swaps I'm going to make, we can do the same thing and look at people that have played one game, people that are coming in potentially for a debut, people on the bubble. Now, first game for the season out of Elijah Hollins, 276k, so he's around the mark of a Roberts and a McKercher and a Sanders, but he looked very impressive. And before I was going to make the move I was making this week, I was considering leaving Sam Berry aside and then swapping him over to Hollins and having him as a on-field player. I still very well might do that if he can continue to produce big numbers, but I'm avoiding him currently. Hustwaite debuted for Hawthorn, didn't really get as much of the ball as I thought he would. He was a smoky for me for the NAB Rising Star this year. The fact that he's only just debuted now and he didn't get much of it when I know he can play better than that, a little bit concerning. I don't know whether he's one to look at. He'd have to have a really big game to convince me otherwise. Jack McRae only got a 59 back into the team. It's going to drop his price immensely, but if he can have a very terrible start and then pick his game up, could be very cheap to bring into your forward line later in the year. One to definitely keep an eye on. When we look at players that are on the bubble, I don't think there are many coming in this particular week. I mean, Sean Manor was on the bubble, but he got dropped this week. A lot of people are looking at Brandon Parfitt as a mid-price option. He scored 90 this week. He scored 102 the week prior. Could be a pod pick at only 0.6% ownership. But I don't know whether he is in best 22 for Geelong. He's one of those fringe players that has been on the in and out all the time. I'd love to bring him in if I could, but I'm going to avoid him because I'm not sure about his security. When we look around the ground as well, I don't honestly think there is many other options to consider, especially at low prices. When you drop the prices down, prices are down, and we have a look at the sub 200k players that are on the bubble with 2 games played. There really aren't many at all. I mean, Finn McGuinness is 210k. Charlie Lazaro has already missed his bubble, so you don't want to be potentially looking at him yet. As I said, Caleb Mitchell, I don't think he's viable at all. I don't think we roll the dice with Manor. I'm actually happy. I think we dodged a bullet with him. But the move I'm making is I'm getting rid of Berry, moving Wilson to my midfield, which now gives me a mid-forward swap, which I have been lacking severely. And we are going to be bringing in 2 forwards this week. And as I said, it is going to be the Berry boys that I'm bouncing out. Now, when looking at players on the bubble in the forward line, I am bringing one of those players in this week, and that is going to be Sam Darcy from the Bulldogs. I like what he has shown so far. I really like his output. He obviously had a down game this past week gone against West Coast, but the week prior he went huge. He's going to generate money. He's going to get game time. I'm happy for him to be a bench option. Corey Warner, I don't think he's an option. I mean, he's cheap enough, but again, scored only 23, and then prior to that, he only scored a 40, but he's been the sub, so be careful. Be careful to avoid that. Shaki has only played one game. Probably avoid him because I don't think he's best 22 almost anywhere. Reece McInnes is on the bubble. Only scored a 28 last week, but scored 70 odd the week prior. So maybe could be worth considering if you're in dire straits and you want to bring somebody in. Again, Mana, we're avoiding Mana. Maikelti Lafau scored 39, and then the other week he scored 30 odd. I mean, he's 102k. He's got some job security with some injuries, but he's not going to score you big amounts of money. So again, I would avoid if you can. I don't think there's any other really bubble options. I think Buku Kamas was actually on the bubble last week, and now he has had a little bit of a price rise. Just having a look down the list here. Yeah, Finn McRae had a price drop actually because he has been underperforming. Played 3 games and he's only gotten 70 points total. Not the player I think people thought he would be. Sonzi first game in 33. Didn't really get used all that much as an inside midfielder like I would like to see him, but could be a viable option if he starts pumping out better scores. Again, only in 0.1%, so if he can turn stuff around, maybe a viable option there. I'm still not sold on Burgess, but he had his price rise. He's off the bubble. I don't think there's many else. Harvey Gallagher's off the bubble already. Tajwo Woden's been pretty average. I mean, from 2 games, 27, but he has been sub as well. I don't think there's much else. It's very slim pickings looking at players on the bubble now, because they've all missed and moved on from that particular point. The player I am going to bring in, though, and I flipped a couple of times this week, I wanted to bring Harry Mackay in so bad, and I was looking at Harry Mackay a couple of weeks ago. Probably should have pulled the pin. He went up 70k this week, so he was actually sub 400k going into round 3. He would have been the perfect person to bring in for a Nat Fife. I'm persisting with Nat Fife this week out of necessity, and the player I am bringing in, as much as I would love to have Mackay because I think he's got a huge ceiling, I'm going to bring in a player that a lot of people have had some hype over. I haven't really bought into that hype all that much prior to this, but I'm bringing in Tom Powell from North Melbourne. I really think his role suits him well. I think he could very well be a keeper for your forward line, given the fact that we don't have really solid options that we can be confident in, and he has shown that he can give confidence to us in that role. Now, the reason I say I'm bringing him in necessity and I'm using 3 trades out of necessity is if I went for a Mackay, it would have been at the behest of Fife, which still would have left me in a position to play 3 of 4 rookies on the field. At least when I bring in Powell now, it stems the bleeding a little bit, because what I can do is I can now bring him in for, say, a Sexton. I move Sexton to my bench. I put Powell on the ground, and now I've got a more viable scoring option there that is going to provide me a way better score. Sexton might only give me a 60, or Cadman might only give me a 50, and I'm getting 90 to 100 out of Powell. I'll take that. And as much as it pains me to drop my bank from, 190k to 44k, I can make moves next week just purely based on a positional change with Fife, and I can bring in a Mackay, or I can make my first midfield switch up and bring in somebody I've got my eyes on there, maybe a Jack Steele or a Touk Miller, and as I've already said, the next 2 defensive players I'm looking at bringing in to cap things off for me will be Vlosten and Whitfield, provided they can stay fit and provided they can still continuously put out the points that they are putting out. But those are my moves this week. I'm going with Heaney into green as my captain options this week. I think Heaney 148 against Richmond think against West Coast he can do just about the same. The only thing I am concerned about is both Essendon and West Coast would be my captain loophole options, and they play either at the same time or prior to Isaac Heaney playing. So I don't know if I can have that captain's loophole available. I might just have to roll the dice and just throw the captaincy on Heaney. But I think Tom Green against the Gold Coast could potentially have a big outing as well. So I think they're going to be the captain options I roll with. Maybe. As I said though, burning 3 boosts early, I'm a little bit concerned. But when I look at this team, I can already see moves being made in my head. Straight away, Roberts is going to move straight back into my defensive line and could potentially, with the way he's been scoring, stay as a D6 for me for the foreseeable future until I'm ready to make that move. Players like Sanders and McKercher really starting to put in some good work. I think McKercher's more of a keeper than Sanders, but Sanders really repaying the faith after a shoddy start to the year. Sharp's going to make me money. Weir's going to make me money. Wilson is going to make money, but I don't know how much. I'm actually happy that we got a decent score out of Jai Clark because it dropped his break even a bit more, so he's due to make us more money. Cadman's making money. Reed's making money. Fife probably is only going to make us a little bit more money, so he is on the shopping block for me next week. It is just a matter of who do I bring in? Do I target a primo forward, or do we again drop Wilson back to my forward line, roll the dice with a Sexton, Cadman, Reed kind of combination, and then bring in a primo midfielder? I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know. Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below what moves you're going to make this week, how many trades you've made, how your season's progressing. I would love to just have the opportunity to discuss football with you all, because that's what this channel's all about. It's about building a community of people where we can all come together and share our passion for our great game. Do hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do leave a like on the video, hit that subscribe button if you were new around here as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.